welcome to another edition of Leading and Growing Your Real Estate Business. This is James Short, and we are excited to have this special guest on the call today. So, Tyrone Hyde, he's Director of Washington Brown, the property depreciation experts, and they were established in 1978. Washington Brown is one of Australia's oldest and most respected quantity surveying organisation. Each year, they prepare more than 13,500 reports, delivering $1.5 billion in depreciation savings. So Tyrone has a degree in construction economics and is an associate of the Australian Institute of Quantity Surveyors. He began his career at Washington Brown in 1993 as a wide-eyed intern looking for a break in the industry. 20 years later, he's now the major shareholder in the business, and Washington Brown is recognised as one of Australia's leading tax depreciation companies. With his passion and knowledge of property depreciation, Tyrone is a regular speaker at industry conferences and is often quoted in national media. He's also published numerous articles and books, including his popular Claim It book. So let's get him on the call. Mate, Tyrone, great to have you.
Hi, James. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Fantastic, mate. Fantastic. Now, that was a little snapshot of you so far, but mate, tell us about the journey. How did you get into where you're doing and what are you doing now?
Okay, well, the journey now, I just thought you just mentioned Claim It. I just released the book Keep Claiming It because the laws have changed a little bit. So I had to update it. It was 5 years old and, so I just had to rewrite it. And the new book was launched last month. It's the Money Magazine's Book of the Month this month, and it's called Keep Claiming It. How I started? Well, to be honest, my father went broke. And he lost all his money in the late 80s. He lost all his superannuation. He worked all his life as an educator. And like a lot of people, was very smart in many ways, but wasn't that financially literate. And so, he wasn't very good at reading prospectuses or what have you. And he invested all his money in a company called Estate Mortgage. For those old enough to remember, they used to advertise that they were safe as houses. Unfortunately, what they didn't say was they were putting all their money, all these retirees' money, into development sites, not into normal houses. And when interest rates went to 17% in the late 80s, along went his money with it. So I kind of started thinking, well, I want to go down that property path and learn a bit more about property. That's kind of what got me into that property, into the property mantra. And that's when I did a degree in construction economics. And so I've been on a bit of a path to educate people about property and property investment. So hopefully some people might not make that same mistake that my father did, which basically, if you ask me, it killed him. Basically, yeah. So that's how I got into property.
Wow, it's interesting, isn't it? How from something like that can really change our path or our direction. So we don't want to go down a similar path. So we rectify it. And we choose a path that's going to help us to have a different outcome. Obviously, you're dealing with a lot of people within the property space at the moment. What are you noticing as some of the biggest challenges out there with people and with some of your clients that you're working with before they come to you?
Finance would be the number one challenge I'm seeing for people at the moment, including myself. I don't have a lot of debt because I've tended to find that banks win. But I did borrow some money recently, and I've done pretty well in this game. I don't want to sound cocky, but I've done pretty well. And to borrow the amount of hoops I got put through in relation to my overall portfolio, I'm like, guys, this is ridiculous, but it's happened. I've spoken to another couple of clients and they find the same thing. I don't know whether it's because of the Banking Royal Commission or what have you, but whether they've got far more focus at the moment or they're just too scared to lend. But yeah, finance would seem to be the biggest. And I know some people with some pretty big portfolios, and they're getting crunched because they're getting told they've just got to liquidate some of their properties because they just don't want that. When they've got to roll over that next mortgage or whatever, they're saying, well, hang on, no, let's look at your overall portfolio and blah, 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 blah. So I'm definitely finding finance for clients and myself was a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting how obviously we're going in different peaks and troughs and different cycles. And I'm hearing very similar out there in the market as well. What then do you then, obviously dealing with a lot of people in that property space, how then do you help them? What can you do to assist in that process?
Well, I guess we can save them money by making sure they've got depreciation schedules on their other properties, so they are getting some tax benefit in that regard. But we're not. I'd say not something that we can do, but from my point of view, you have to be up to date with your returns. Like, it's amazing how, and I've got like many different entities, so I had to, within a small period of time, I've never been more up to date in my returns ever. Like, I've got trust funds, super funds, business accounts, you name it. With running a pretty big company, you end up with a complicated life. And to get it all up to date was a lot of pressure on my broker, my accounting. I've got 3 accounting companies. To get it all up to date, they've got to talk. It's a long process. I wouldn't recommend having different accounting firms. I've got one for my business, one for my personal, because they've really got to talk. And luckily, they get on well. It's just it's an inherited kind of thing. Being up to date with your accounts is vital. Because the banks, it's funny, the banks, even if you settle a property, I'm finding, even if you settle a property in July or August, right, they'll want the returns, even though it's not due, they'll say, hang on, it's July now, you need to do your final years before. I'm like, oh, this is not due. Doesn't matter. Does not matter that it's not due. It has to be in and submitted. And they want to see the ATO proof that it's actually not just even draft. They want to see that it's the final.
Yeah, so true. So we're talking about challenges. What have been some of the? You've already mentioned a challenge that you've worked through going through growing up. What's been a challenge that within business that you've overcome? You've come through obviously the other side, but you've looked back and go, wow, that's a big lesson. What has been a challenge or a couple of challenges that you've worked through that has been a bit of learning? Okay,
well, 2, I'd say for me. The first one was the GFC. And I nearly lost everything because I was greedy. And so I don't mind telling this story, but I was heavily involved in shares as well. So, when you get quite successful, you think sometimes you know everything. And my lesson there is that's why I don't borrow much anymore, because I have too many leveraged shares. And it's amazing with leverage on shares, when the market goes sour, it's just a knock-on effect and it just wipes me out. So the one lesson I learned there, which was the only thing that saved me, was that my shares, I didn't leverage against my houses or my property. So I've always kept everything in its own basket. So the shit hits the fan. I don't know if we can swear on this program, but if the proverbial hits the fan, then it doesn't affect your other assets. So my shares went from a large portfolio to zero. Because but I didn't take money out and I didn't prop them up. I went, you know what, that's gone bad. So I've gone back to the share market now, but I don't borrow ever again into that. Someone said to me before, when I was about 25, they said, if you can't afford to own them, shares, don't own them, right? And I wish I'd kept that mantra. So every share, but I didn't. If you can't afford to own them, don't own them. I went, I wish I did that, but that's a good mantra. The second thing for us, for me as a business that we're still working through, the major changes in the depreciation law that came around the budget, literally a year ago. And so that was a bit of a shock, and we're just working through that at the moment on how still, there's so many, whilst there's a, 2-line budget statement that said you can no longer claim plant and equipment on secondhand properties, that might take 2-line in the budget. There's how much coding of our computers and our apps and our websites, and everything has changed just by these 2 lines in the budget. It's so
the rippling effect.
It is, and it's like I still look at most of my competitors' websites, and they still haven't got anything updated about, because they're probably still shaking their head too. Like, where did that come from? So that's that's it.
Lovely. Oh, but on the flip side, you've had some great wins over your time. What's some of the wins that you're most proud of as well?
Building a good team. I'd say we have a lot of fun. It's not just about the wealth. I'd say that coming a great place to work every day where people really like being here. I'd say, look, I'm 47 now, and I'm by far the oldest in the company, which is kind of but it's been like that for 10 years. And so we've got a young team. We have a lot of fun. There's a lot. That's why I had to leave, go into a quiet room here, because there's always too much laughing in my office. I don't know, but I'd say building a good team. there's been lots of clients. I've been advising Harry Triggerboff of Meriton for 20 plus years, and I've had some fantastic meetings with him, and I've learned so much from him. So some of the great clients. I love being involved in property. I love, doing building inspection sites and stuff like that. So, yeah, look, having a good life. I have a really lovely life.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So good to hear. Now, let's just on the teams. I mean, you said you got a young, dynamic team there. What do you think makes up a championship team, like a winning team? And where do you see other businesses fall short on actually doing that?
Wow, that's a good question. I just think, firstly, everyone's got to get on. I know the Swans have a no dickhead policy, right?
Good policy, isn't it?
It's a good policy. Like, you think about it, I think, you know what? And people and we don't really have any bitching or anything like that. People know where they're at. And I think that is a good mantra to have as not just a sporting team, as a company, no dickhead policy. And, generally speaking, when we do employ someone, about 5 of the key people end up at the final interview. Are they going to fit? Are they going to fit in this organisation? Because, and I guess that's a nice way of saying it's a no dickhead policy.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, so true. But looking at then your leadership style, obviously you've got a leadership style that is bringing the team in, getting part of even recruiting, getting part of different activities. What makes then up for you as what do you? What kind of leadership capabilities do you have that you go, this is what I'm proud of, and this is where I see other businesses may be falling short of those leadership capabilities?
Look, I'm not. It's good. I'm not shy in getting it out there. Like I think some people getting like I do a lot of videos, and I've just released a 7-part video series, and I'm in a lot of mentoring company. I come back, so I'm in like a business groups, business blueprint. Yep. I've got some mentors in that, and going to those things, we go, every 3 months to these 4-day conferences, and coming back with the tools that I learned from there, and then implementing it. That keeps them motivated, because I come back, and I have to admit, when I come back from the business blueprint conferences, I'm annoying as
pumped.
All right, and they're like, "Oh no, he's been to another conference." Yeah, I know. And so so I come back and I'm quite annoying. So, and I guess showing them the tools that I'm doing, that I learned from that being the tech tools, there's things called timely tech, where they learn, where you learn these great new tools. And I'm showing the kids that are 20 years younger than me how to use tech. I love it. I love it. So, yeah.
Dale runs an amazing course at the Business Blueprint. No, he's top guy.
Yeah.
You say you mentioned mentors, and I know obviously Dale and Dale's got a team of mentors around as well. Are there any mentors that have stood out for you that you go, you know what, I'm so glad that I've connected. I've learned so much from that mentor. Who are those types of mentors?
Well, there's 2 for me. There was my ex-partner. So So Washington Brown's been around for 40 years, but I came in at about 25 years ago. There was a Tony Brown, who was the Brown in Washington Brown, I call him. We just had a big 40th party where I hired out the Australian Museum and had 400 of my closest friends come, clients and everything. Yeah, it was an amazing night. There's actually a link. If you're listening to this, there's a link on my homepage with a video to the party, which you should have a look. It's really cool. Anyway, so I brought back Tony Brown, the Brown in Washington Brown, and he gave a speech. And we worked together in a small office in Crow's Nest for many, many years, and learning about construction contracts and his knowledge of construction was quite amazing. So he'd be number one. And Harry Triggerboff's been a bit of I wouldn't say Harry wouldn't say he's my mentor, but I've had that many meetings with Harry where I've certainly learnt an incredible amount from him, which has then benefited my clients. Because I can tell you, Harry, whilst he's building 5,000 units a year, he loves depreciation. He loves it. I go to his birthday party. This is a true story. This happened about 2 months ago. Every year, I go to Harry's birthday party, and his rabbi rings me up and says, the rabbi says, "Tyrone, you've got to come this year. How much work has Harry given you?" "Oh, okay, I'm coming again." And so I go there. But this year, it's because Harry actually endorsed my book. And I've only got 10% battery left. But anyway, Harry endorsed my book. And so I rewrote it, and I bought the new book to his birthday party. I said, "Oh, Harry, here's a birthday present for you, my new book." And so this was a half an hour before the party ended, and I thought, I just don't put it down the table. Anyway, for a half an hour at the party, he walked around with my free book. Right? And I saw him go to the lift. And anyway, he's taken it to the lift with all his mates, and he goes off. And 3 days later, I get a message from his EA, because Harry doesn't have a computer. He's never used a computer in his life. His EA emailed me and said, Harry loves your book. He wants you to send 5 copies because he's making all his key staff read it.
Love it.
I know. I thought it was pretty cool.
Love it. Yeah. Love it. So just to bring it all together, what would be 3 pieces of advice that you'd love to give to the listeners in relations to what you're doing and how you can help?
Okay. Well, firstly, I would say if you're in business, so let's look at this from 2 points of view, business and property. Firstly, for business, I'd say having mentors is definitely one. You just don't think you can do everything, right? Before I went into Dale's group, Business Blueprint, I used to think I knew everything, and I quickly learned that I don't know a lot. And so having people around you that inspire you and actually can help you do what you want to achieve is really key. In terms of property, I'd say 2 bits of information. Being a quantity surveyor, I would say that number one, people go into property without knowing the actual real implications of the financials of the property. People think they can buy a property for $500K, sell it for $550, and they've made money, right? They've got to know the entry and exit costs of property before they go. So they should really know the financial cash flow of a property before they buy a property. And the third thing I'd say is probably if you're new, you've got to research, and that's a bit generic to say, oh, you got to research. I'd say that you really, if you're lazy, you don't make money. Okay, here's my advice. Well, no, actually, I'll give you 2 more bits of information. One, you don't make money being lazy, right? So you have to make money by improve. That's why I like property, because you can actually improve it, right? Whereas a share, you can't do a lot to your Commonwealth Bank shares, right? Yeah. And the final bit of information I'd say is I've always made money doing the opposite of what other people do. So, for instance, at the moment, I wouldn't be buying, personally in Sydney, I wouldn't be buying in Sydney or Melbourne. I think it's too hot. The yields are too low. Perth's looking good in Adelaide. It's looking better to me. But there's many areas out there. Australia's a big country with many different property markets, not just one market. Even within Sydney, there's many different property markets. So, following the herd of when you start reading the paper every day that the share market's gone up 5% and you continue, you think, oh, I've got to get on that boat, or, I've got to get on that. Run, do something else, And the same applies with property. So that's my advice.
So true. So great pieces of advice. How can the audience find out more? Where can they go to find out more?
Well, if you Google Keep Claiming It, I'd say buy my book. It's not just about property investment. It's not just about tax depreciation. It's about my property investment journey, all about property investment. So go to Dymocks. It's a real book. It's a published one. It's called Keep Claiming It, and it tells my property investment journey, gives me lots and lots of tips, and there's a small bit about depreciation as well.
Fantastic. So go and check it out on Dymocks. Keep claiming it. And Tyrone, really appreciate your time and your energy and your enthusiasm and your world of knowledge. Really appreciate your time today.